Okay, we continue learning Hilchos Shabbos with the Heilige Shemiras Shabbos Kilchasai. We began opening packages, the wonderful conglomeration of multiple malachis. As we'll see today, the depth of this. We have Baina, we have Korea, we have Saiser, all mushed together. We're on page Kufya Beis, Kufya Gimel, Kufya Dalid. Yesterday we learned in the Hakdama, very important, and we're going to see this is going to come up again today, that the lechatchila is to open everything before Shabbos, and by everything we mean everything. We quoted from Zalman, he quoted Ramoshe, that the lechatchila is to open all packages, bottles, containers, etc. before Shabbos. We continued and we said that there's two types of opening of packages and bottles, etc. One is to reuse the item, and that is a bayah, that's a problem, that's usher, and it doesn't seem like we have a heter to that. The second is to not, well, we do have a heter to that, which we'll get to in a moment, excuse me. Second is that you're not going to reuse the packaging. On that, we said yesh aisrim, v'yesh matirim. That's really what we're in the middle of, which is some Zalman Shita, is that if you're not going to reuse the bottle of soda, the bag of milk, the can of soda, then you're allowed to open it. Before we continue on that note, we'll mention that Rosh Zalman mentioned that even the Isrim, even the Shita Hamachmirim are maskim that if you just destroy the container, then they're maskim that one could be mekel. And that was really at the beginning of Sif Gimel over here. We went into Ulam Yesh Mekilim on page Kufya Gimel. On the Yesh Mekilim, he taught us a bunch of things which are mekel, and each one really needs its own explanation, which he does right now. And this hits a little bit close to home because one of the first discussions I had, we'll remove all details, is someone who told me he got shouted at in the way the English would say it, or yelled at as the Americans would say it, for came into a shir on Shabbos holding a can of soda. Holding a can of soda. Shem Yirachem. How you open a can of soda on Shabbos? It's Chol Shabbos. Got screamed at. Lamaisa, for this one, you don't even have to go to the footnote. This is straight in the top of the Shemiras Shabbos. He taught us Ulam Yesh Shemekilim. Okay, Yesh Shemekilim. You want to say they're machmirim? I understand, but you can't yell at someone for drinking a can of soda. Yesh Shemekilim liftoyach kufsaot pachiyot mashke. Pachiyot mashke is a can of soda. So that's what we're going to pick up, which is in Ha'ara Yud Aleph. Just to mention that in Ha'ara Yud, he went through a lengthy explanation, which Rosh Zalman taught us, that the function of a package, very important, is just there to guard the item in transit, just there to protect the item from outside elements, and therefore, it's called a kli re'ua and a mustaki. Mustaki is code word in the world of Baina Korea. When you make everything a mustaki, what is a mustaki? It's a good question. It's some form of barrel of thing that would hold figs and stuff inside of it, and you're allowed to break it open on Shabbos. That's all part of the complication is what is a mustaki. But if you make something a mustaki, then that is where the kula comes from. Continues Rosh Zalman. First of all, Stam, for those who learn Tfilas Kalim at the end of Ha'ara Yud, he throws down over there that when you open up a container for a Suda, he says it's still pater from Tfilas Kalim. Why? Because it's called, he goes with Ramoshe's Heter, Natseh al Yedei Yisrael. You're creating the Kli. Very interesting. Now, whether this is a stira to Tfilas Kalim or not is, Yesh Makayim La'ayin, how that works. But either way, in Ha'ara Yud Aleph, he talks about opening up cans. So, Lamaisa, opening up a can involves numerous shaylos. Number one being mechatich, because when you open a can, as you open up the can, it creates the beautiful mouth, and the mouth has many advantages to it. It pours nicely, it drinks nicely, and you don't cut open your lip. So it says, we're talking about why you let open up a can on Shabbos. The previous Hara Yod, he went through why it's not going to be Bain of a Seiser. That's where he explained that if the whole purpose of the content of the container is just to hold the item until it's being thrown out, that's where some Zalman is mekel, that's called a mustaki, and you let it open it and throw it out. But what about mechatich? You open up the tongue, you open up that tab part. Why not? Why, if you ask the average guy, why are you opening the can? He says, your kavan is not elishli yisaret b'shas hashtil. You don't want to hurt yourself while you are drinking. You're not having kavana, and you can realize how every word here is, what? No, you're opening that to cut your lip when you drink from it. Avada, you want to get, again, to get the contents out, that was fine. The question is, I'm sorry, let me speak out what the other side is. The side is you're making a Pesach Yafa. It's a separate Isser in the world of Baina. It's one thing you open up a container to get out the contents, but you're not going to make a nice opening, a Pesach Yafa. And the Pesach Yafa, one would think, goes hand in hand with mechatich. It's a perforated line that you're cutting through in order to make a beautiful opening. And now that beautiful opening, l'chayr, allows it to pour easier, says everyone. So why is that mutter? Says Shemiras Shabbos, you know why it's not mechatich? Because the reason you need a nice opening, you need an opening to get out the contents. But for that, it suffices just to have the top and pour it out. You need a nice opening. I'll take a question in 1 second. He says not to hurt yourself. You could realize, obviously, anyone who's going to argue, there's numerous points to argue on over here. Rav Yashiv argued and he said it's mechatich deraisa. Zok the Heiliger Rebbe Rav Yashiv. Because he says, what is mechatich? He says there's something called misartet and then mechatich. Misartet is to score. Misartet is on the Sefer Torah, you make those lines. Zakra Rav Yashiv, the lines in your can, that's called the sirtut. And now you have the place to cut through. So Zakra Rav Yashiv, perforation makes it a deraisa. Shlomo Zalman clearly doesn't go with that mahalach. He goes probably more with the Graz's mahalach, which eventually we'll see, which is that perforated is called the tchila, the beginning of a cut, and you're just completing it. And because you don't really care, Zakra Shlomo Zalman, if it pours nicely, it's mutter. There are those that say, just that's what the Shemiras Shabbos paskins for Shlomo Zalman. So if someone wants to know, you let open up a can, the Shemiras Shabbos paskins, yesh machmirim, yesh mekilim, or Shlomo Zalman Arbach. He did not say anything about one-time usage. He did not say anything that you have to pour it out the first time. He did not say you're not allowed to drink from the can. He did not say any of that. He did not become a nostalgic mashkiach to yell at people about drinking in the Beis Medrash because it's Chol Shabbos. None of that happened. He said simply, it's a mutter because you're not lepes chiyuv mekayim. What's the question? Yeah. Right. No, that's not what he says. He doesn't say it's asur. He says it's mutter to open a can. To counter the Pesach Yafeh, he says the reason it's a Yafeh is so it doesn't gut yourself. You don't care. If I were to tell you, by the way, here's, what? Yeah. It pours nicer. Of course. Rav Neubert lived in a world with soda cans, as did Shlomo Zalman Aruch. He knew what it is. And that's the Taina. Of course, that's another place to argue. Yeah, good. We'll speak to that also. Another makom lach is what? Is that, of course, it opens beautifully, that it pours beautifully, and that's alzeh anu kairin. That is Pesach Yafeh. Shlomo Zalman disagreed, and he held his mutter. And no, he did not say over here. Now you see, he says ra and hara this and hara this and hara that. Maybe a different day we'll trace all the haras. And ayin in the minchas shleimai. So there are other opinions that Shlomo Zalman held you should pour it out in one usage, and maybe that does help other side svars. But for now, the Shemiras Shabbos in Parak Tes Halacha Gimel says opening cans is mutter. Next, sakiyot, opening up bags. Ha'ara yud beis is a very important ha'ara. Now I'll just tell you the problem. These ha'aras are massive. I mean, to read the whole thing is difficult, so I'm going to try to read and skip around, and hopefully I don't lose everyone. But he says over here in ha'ara yud beis, ayin la'el v'ayderech l'shtamish. That the reason you're using it is just to guard the contents, the milk or the juice, as you've seen, and therefore, and that's the reason why you're allowed to open it up on Shabbos. Don't make a nice opening. He continues. You should not open up the bag. We're on a bag of chips. We're on a bag of milk. We're on any of these items. Is don't open it up where you open it, which is which side? The top or the bottom. There's no top just because they put the letters that makes it the top. Doesn't make a difference. Don't open it on the makim hanidvak. The haraya, they only put the letters on afterwards. Or maybe they don't. They seal the top and bottom the same. Yeah, it's the same sealing process, obviously. But there are those, I should mention, there are those that say there's a mile to open from the bottom. Because since, whatever, or from the top, because that's their kavanah. Let's try to stick to Shlomo Zalman over here. Again, it's the same sealing. It's a heat seal. It's the same heat seal. How should you open up the bag, says Shlomo Zalman? Don't open it up from the top. Stab it in the middle. Don't cut the letters. So now we have a problem because there's another malacha. 1 second. You just told me if I have a bag of chips, I should take a knife and I cut down the middle. Why is it not korea? What's korea? Tearing. What are you doing? You're tearing open your bag. No korea. Something which is one entity, nylon, paper or nylon, then you're allowed to cut it open. If you're listening carefully, the Shulchan Aruch Harav just taught you, you're allowed to cut a paper in half on Shabbos. According to the Graz, if you wanted to cut toilet paper, based on what this Graz says, no problem. Don't do it on the perforated, ironically. Do it not on the perforated, which is one of the reasons why they say Kavod Abrius. When you have to rip open the toilet paper with your elbow, maybe there's a mile to not do it on the lines, which is obviously impossible. But either way, says Hashem Zalman, Avshar Rabbi Chalkim, many argue, Ayin Shams of Gimel Be'er Lach Demaskin, Kamakam Ayin Sham Be'er Lacha, Patash Shulchan Aruch, decree he she'atzmei tikin, it's not a deraisa, v'chulu, 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 v'chulu. He flip over the page, and go down, and he continues, and he says on 3 lines down at the end of the line, Havalei kishover egois. It's like you're just cracking open a nut. What if you take a piece of a cloth and you tie it over your apple? It's not a shirt anymore. Now it's a covering to your apple. It's a shell. It's a reason why there's no korea is because the bag becomes a shell to your food. Once you throw in the mouth, once you take out the insides, and I always skip the parentheses. He rak bechlei lagia latoichem. Just getting the incidents. V'chon bolos in lechavish of techav v'shari v'zeh shel korea. Are you allowed to rip open the bag? So Shlomo Zalman just taught us that you're allowed to rip it open. If you go down a few more lines right after the parentheses, first one in line is shetoifrim. He says when we call makayim toiv loy lahafrim b'makam and nitzvak. Because if you're just listening, who cares if you do it in the makam and nitzvak or not? He just said there's no korea. So what's the difference? He says it's better not to rip it open in the place where it is attached. Minei sharak miksasa inishal kayam of lokulai shrei nizrak tafor kameishu mebli leftoiches kulai. Now he goes, what about in a milk bag? Be careful, don't make a nice opening, because then it's a different issue. He says it again. He reminds you. You got through the whole footnote. He reminds you. You forgot to cut it open. You should throw it out. So that is opening packages. So it is interesting. Shlomo Zalman is telling us it's a toiv not to open the bag of chips at the top, but rather to cut it through the middle. We continue over here in Shlomo Zalman just taught us that it's better, it's a toiv to any bag of chips you're opening, not to open it from the top, but to cut it in the middle. He finishes over here, or you should open it for Shabbos, actually. Of course. That, again, Hakdama number 1, which she just reminded ourselves like Dama number 2. Everything is better to open before Shabbos. And of course, I don't think anyone will argue that if there's something that you know for sure that someone's going to say, it's not as fresh, it's not as this, all the taters in the world. But if someone knows, and it's to open for Shabbos, there's no shaylo. What I'll do one more or via Tes Vav, in which he says that if you're going to use this utensil again and again, which we said, again, if you go back at top in the 3rd line, then you're not allowed to open even according to the mekilim. Because why? You're making a reusable kli, which, as was mentioned yesterday, your Jolly Ranchers bag, again, I don't think we reuse it, but let's say someone would want to reuse it, and let's say that was the mitzias, that you rip open the top, and now you have a functioning Ziploc bag. Even the mekilim would be a problem, because you created a kli. And why? How is that a creation of the kli? So you look at Arates Vav and you see an incredible halacha. Shamati v'Shlomo Zalman are you mitaking kli? You're fixing a kli to like gara mechayti chisam lachzus b'shinaf. If you break a piece of wood to clean out your teeth, oilev teiches adelos is a tikkun kli, which is an important halacha to mention. If you have a toothpick and let's say you get dull at the end, and you want a sharp part, so what do? You just crack it in half and you continue using it. That was also on Shabbos. You just created a tikkun. You just created a kli. But it is aser. Says the Shlomo Zalman with the same thing. And we'll conclude. If you look at the double star over here, which is in the next case, that according to the Eisrim, we pointed out that if you rip open the container, if you rip open the package, it's mutter. He says in the star 2, which just connects us back to Bayer as we conclude, he says you're allowed to do this even though when you make the hole, what happens? All the liquid falls out. You have a bag of who knows what. You cut it open, you stab your tuna fish jar, all of a sudden all the liquid comes out. He says it's not a problem of bayir kareu eno mechavin lekach, which means it has to be eno mechavin lekach. You can't stab the bottom of your tuna fish container, hold it upside down for 5 minutes, shake to get all the liquid out, and say, it means you stab and then you open those few moments that some liquid would come out. That is not a problem. That would not be a problem. We'll pick it up.